C threatening the checkmate. Prophylaxis finds another flight square for the king. C5! Oh! Dirty, dirty child.
I took his king! You guys, I took his king! This is what I don't understand about the pre-move, man.
Knight C5, pawn takes C5.
Let's go!
Go, Charlie.
Take that, Boomer GM. Take that, Jesse.
Mamas, don't let your babies grow up to be cowboys.
Yeah, I'll probably take mine.
One, D6 to defend it. What? Oh, good lord. Oh my god, White. Oh my god. The tension. Just so thick.
Yeah, son! Taste me now!
Yeah, so here's your cue, Hokie. You can cut right here.
All right, how's it going, everybody? How are the scrubs and the non-scrubs doing?
That was a great intro. I really enjoyed that. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was the world premiere of the intro. So I hope you guys liked it. Chat seemed to be enjoying it. So
yeah, that was pretty sweet.
All right, how's it going, everybody? Oh, someone's getting some. Might need to mute. There you go.
Yeah.
All right, so the scrubs are back. We were off last week, and then the week before was a Halloween stream. But this week, Drew's off. He's slacking, and we are joined by two not so scrubby players. So I think everyone knows.
Apparently my cat
and a cat. Yeah, what's your cat's name?
Oh, nice.
This is Tribus.
Tribus.
He's a three-legged cat.
Is he really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Those only have three.
Oh.
We were just talking about that the other night. I was like, cats and dogs, they really only need 3 legs, or really only 2 legs. They have an extra.
I think the fourth leg serves a purpose. I mean, like, I don't.
It does, but they can obviously survive without it. I mean, if you lose a
person
leg,
but I could survive without a leg.
Yeah, but you need supplemental things. Like you need somebody to make you like a prosthetic or something. Cats, they just lose a leg and they're just good.
Yeah, they wouldn't be very good in the wild, though. I think, right?
Yeah, it might not be as quick and as nimble.
Can't run. Yeah, balance, speed, all the athletic things are just severely hampered.
I'm sure the three-legged cat would find a way to compensate.
Mm-hmm.
And its other physical attributes would be enhanced, probably like
supervision. That's a good point. It's a good point.
It's like the Daredevil. It's others.
Right.
So a three-legged cat could survive.
I was gonna say,
but
if Stevie Wonder or something. But yeah,
a one-legged person would definitely die a lot faster in the wild, probably.
Yes.
Okay, so that's cat talk. How's it going, Evan? Everyone remembers Evan from the All-Star weekend with his pretty impressive performance.
Yeah, it was a really great performance.
Yeah, it's all been downhill from there, I think. That's pretty much. Yeah,
you hit your peak.
What was
peak? But it was such a fun event. The experience I gained playing against, just those 4, top quality opponents will really pay dividends. For the events I'm preparing for now. I'm playing over Thanksgiving in Philly, and then more importantly, I'm playing in the I Am Norm round robin in Charlotte before Christmas. So, really just so meaningful to be able to play at that time control against that level of opposition. I'm hoping to build off of that, give me some momentum moving forward.
Yeah.
How many rounds is the Philly tournament in Thanksgiving?
That's 6 rounds.
6 rounds. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think Jesse will be there too, actually.
Is
That's what
Latte?
chat's
Latte,
saying.
are you playing that? I think
In the Philly
think
one, I
Chef
think he had mentioned he
Lattes.
was.
Um,
So you mentioned the Charlotte one is an IM norm? Is that what you said?
Right.
So are you do you have intentions? Like, are you trying to go for like the IM title, or are you just kind of going day to day?
Yeah. Until fairly recently, the opportunities to compete in events like this were few and far between in the United States. Most serious players who are intent on earning that title will typically do so abroad. In one of the first Saturday tournaments in Budapest, or possibly elsewhere in Europe. But the US was not exactly facilitating events like this. So I had earned an IM norm 10 years ago.
Oh, really?
Unfortunately, they don't expire.
right. So
Not anymore.
Oh, very
For
nice. I
life.
didn't know you already had one in the bag. That's nice.
Yeah. So I've got one in the bank. That's my insurance policy, and in order to get the title, you need your FIDE rating has to exceed 2,400. It can happen like during the event. The same way you'll hear about someone earning GM because their live rating was like 2,500.66, right?
so even if like you lose the last round, it still counts.
If you have the 3 norms, but you the only sort of absent element is the rating. I think that FIDE permits that once you attain it live, right? It doesn't even have to be like in a published supplement. That will still satisfy the requirements.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I don't think NM does that for USCF because I've heard of I've heard of people dropping out of tournaments right when their live rating hits 2,200 to get the NM title.
Yeah, present company included.
So basically you get that you get the rating and you don't want to risk losing it, so you just drop out, and then at the end of the tournament, that's when they declare that that's your rating.
Yeah, but
but how couldn't you have messed up the
100% you could have messed it up. I mean, like I happened to be published at 21.99 when I played one round, won, and then withdrew and strutted out of the club, with my head held high.
Yeah, because also
you
also don't know what's going to happen the rest of the tournament. So even if your calculation is correct, it's still predicted. Yeah, it's still not.
Yeah,
they were just talking about that
in
in
a rating calculator, and it like 3 times in the rating calculator says do not base your tournament decisions on this rating calculator. Like
all these disclaimers.
Yeah.
They were just talking about that in I forget who it was on, I think it was the last Perpetual Chess podcast, and he said that it was like he had like 3 games left, and the guy told him, whoever it was, told him that his rating had exceeded, so he had gotten I think it was NM or whatever it was. And he was basically just relying on this guy because he didn't really know. He was like assuming his calculations were right, and it turns out they were right. But that's exactly, they were just talking about that.
It's an especially slippery slope now, considering how many rated tournament players are so overwhelmingly underrated, right? Because those ratings could have been from years and years ago, and subsequent
I'm in the pool with all online at the moment.
Yeah, it's
it's terrible.
There's going to need to be a lot of evening out over the next 6 months to a year to get some accurately represented ratings.
Yeah, there's no difference right now playing like an 800 and a 1400. It doesn't make it. The rating means nothing, or unrated, which is a lot of the case too.
Right.
There's like no difference in this. I mean, sometimes there is. Sometimes they're like an actual 800, but or sometimes they're an actual 14. It just doesn't. Nothing makes sense. So yeah.
Yeah, 'cause aren't they saying? They're saying chess latte is like rated 700 or something.
Yeah, can you
OTV,
imagine playing?
It's just absurd.
Like I lost to a kid last week who's like 700 or 8, closer to 800, but still, that's gonna be another shot to my already depressed rating.
Yeah, with coming back to over the board chess, I'm worried that like I want to be the one who's the underrated and like score a bunch of rating in one tournament, but I'm also worried about like running into some random 1400 that's better than me.
There's a little bit of that, like you'll run into like a random unrated or like 1400, like you're saying, but at least the majority of the people at your rating are, it's off from what it was, but they're more. It's a
little bit closer.
Yeah, in my pool, like if you're anything like under 1500, it's just a total crapshoot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I will only play against 6-year-old IMs that only play into the Marshall. There we go. No 4 nights.
Yeah, things will get interesting when somebody wins a section, knowingly having entered it with a rating that is like within the restrictions, right? Like if it's an under 1600 section, but that rating could be 10 years old, and that they could be 2700 on chess.com. And so it's like, will a tournament organizer like cap their prize or institute some sort of policy? Right.
Yeah, I've been seeing usually it's if you're unrated, there's a capped prize, but I've also seen like if your rating is like 500 points below the top section and you're playing in a different set or what was it? No, it was like under 2300 section. If your rating was below 1900, so like 400 points below that, your prize was capped. I didn't really understand it because you're playing up at that point, like, but you're not playing in the open section, so I didn't really understand. That was for the Vegas tournament coming up that Kostya is playing in December. It was weird.
Yeah. There was I played a tournament, a weekend 5-round tournament, the Denver Fall Classic or whatever, and I tied second in the under 1400, but I tied first for players with a rating. So like the prize was capped because like one guy got 4.5 but was unrated, and then me and someone else tied with 4. So got a little extra money from over under the normal second place prize.
Sorry, I was just edit some chat.
Nice. Oh yeah, I saw that. I was like, what is going on? Evan, do you know if Casa has seen Rook F5 yet?
I think it's safe to say that he has. That since our game, he is now aware of Rook F5. But
and that was I think that was the game of the tournament, though.
Yeah.
I spent way too much time watching all of the games all weekend. But yeah, that one was really, really well.
I mean, I went over that game with my coach, who's a GM, who did not see Rook F5.
Someone in chat was trying to pass it off as their own move too.
Yeah.
So in like 30 seconds. He's
like Rook F. He's like his comment was hilarious. He goes, Casa's got this. It's just a mop up. And Costa and David are like, what? A mop up? What are you talking about? He's like, yeah, Rook F5, and it's an easy win. And they're both like, Rook F5. And then David puts it on the board, and then Costa's like, oh, and David's like, wait. And then David finally sees it. He's like, oh my God, that's disgusting.
Yeah, no, that move exemplifies, if you need a dictionary definition of what a like engine move is, right? A move that no human being could like cognitively envision. Again, because it is so unprincipled.
It makes no sense
on so many levels, right? And not only that, Black needs to like play knight e6 first anyway.
Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to find the game. I'm going back.
Right. So is by the computer, right? You played knight e6, right?
So
by the computer, is that like a blunder because of rook f5, or is knight e6?
So it's a blunder to the extent that after he takes the knight, I can't take the bishop on f3 because of rook f5. Mm-hmm.
But then if you don't take the bishop, then you just lost the knight, right?
Well, this is the amazing thing, right? Is that the calculation needs to go further back. It needs to go to f takes g5. I thought that taking with the rook was a mistake. I thought he should have taken back with the pawn. Like rook takes g5 allows knight e6, right? Which looks like it's just winning for Black. So it's like you need all of these like explicit moves to be played in order to even reach the position to go rook f5. So this is something that would have to be considered well in advance for like super GM anonymous chat member to like at that moment be like, bam, rook f5, I spotted it. Good thing I'm doing puzzles with Gadir, twice a month. Like
you said it was in the Casa game, right?
Yeah. It was like
so it was after rook takes the bishop.
It was right after
28 or something like that.
20
so Evan found like this really cool knight what was it, knight e6?
Knight e6, taking advantage of this pin on the f file.
Okay.
A backwards pin.
So you found knight e6, is that what you said?
Right. So here I played knight e6.
Yeah, and then queen takes e3.
And so after f takes e6, queen takes f3. The move that any human being would miss for obvious reasons is this unbelievable rook to f5, which just appears to give up your rook.
Yeah.
Right? Pawn takes f5. So now white can go queen to g5 check.
I mean, I guess it does sort of like if you're looking for ways to infiltrate, there's like some.
I think if you're told like white to move and win, like maybe you find it, but if you're just
what else made it? I think what made it harder for Casa, because people in the chat were like debating whether he found, and actually at this point, Teddy Coleman and Josiah, although Josiah Stearman might not, but Teddy Coleman was definitely in the chat. And then, so everybody in the, they're like, will Casa see it? And Teddy Coleman, I think, said like, he thought he would. He's like, Casa's so good at tactics. Right. But then I think David, I remember if it's David or Koji, but one brought up the point that like, another reason it's so hard to find is because it's like, even if you Casa has been playing this whole time with his compensation like on the dark squares, right? So there's no part of him that's looking for a move like this, so that even makes it harder,
right? Casa was in time pressure, right?
He's down to under 5 minutes,
and I could sort of tell just by the expression on his face that he had missed knight e6. If you knew that rook f5 was a resource, you don't miss knight e6. You pray for knight e6.
Right, sure.
It's the only move that allows rook f5 to appear on the board. All sorts of
it's like it's a clearance sacrifice though, right? If we're thinking thematically, isn't it though, right? You're trying
you mean in this position to move rook f5?
Yeah.
Well, it's also, you have to, it's not just clearance, but also attraction to move the pawn away from
you. Right. You need to clear both. You need to clear the square and the whole file. And it does.
Yeah. Baron says it's clearance, interference, and decoy in one move. It's just throw every tactical name at it. It's just everything.
Yeah, I mean, and really, like it is a move that you could probably compare to, like, I don't know, Van Gogh's Starry Night, right? Or like, just because it is just such a aesthetically, like, marvelous move, right?
Mhm.
Like, if he had played it during the game, right? Like, I probably would have I probably couldn't help but just to smile, like, at the uh like sheer beauty, right, of the move. Like, it's so unexpected, but so
chess.com had
powerful.
chess.com had an article like the 10 best chess moves of all time. And I think
Yeah.
this one is at least as good as a few of them.
Yeah, it's, if my contribution to, like, chess history was to have played a game that allows, the chess playing community to see that a move like that exists, I probably left it a little better than it was before I arrived, and I'll be satisfied with that.
Unfortunately, it's just a little bit. It's just a little less cool that the computers find these moves now.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
Or the computer using people in chat.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Because if that was something that, like, David or Kostya found on stream, like, that'd have been really cool to watch them, like, reason through it. But with just someone that was, every time that he's ever been in chat, calls out the top engine moves for everything from Jesse streams, and this stream was just annoying.
Yeah.
He's
They-
really
they
good at
did
using
it.
the engine, though.
They did it in another game too, and actually, I think it was a Nemcova's game, and with Alexa, Nemcova's game with Alexa, and
okay, that was also the
and,
last round of the game. Yeah.
and yeah, so and he goes like, no, because in that line, because there's like some line where David goes like, you can't take, and then they go like, no, you have a like bishop h8 or something. I forget what it was, something like that. And then and they was like, or bishop h7 or something like that. And there's like, yeah, okay, we'll show that line if it happens on the board. Some of the other people in chat, and then it did happen, but like the same guy was the one who was calling it out, because they were like, oh no, she can't do this, and then they're like, yes, she can. She has this move. Like, yeah.
That's how you know I'm not using the engine, because I never say any of the good moves in chat.
No.
If I suggest a move, it turns out like it hangs a piece like immediately.
I know.
Like,
I was doing that, like like when I'm trying to like participate and like throw out, but like I'll like type in a move, and then immediately I'll be like, oh, that move is trash. Why did I say that? Yeah.
So this was almost your masterpiece.
I mean,
Well,
Almost-
he
I
won
got
it.
a W.
Well, no, you still won, but it's like this was all. This
Yeah,
was almost your Starry Night. If you had just found
Yeah.
that
Almost-
one,
it was
that
almost-
simple move.
No, he
Yeah.
would have been the sub. He would have been like the guy screaming in the Scream, if we're comparing it to art.
Yeah, I would have been the I guess, I don't know, not the inspiration.
Mhm.
Would have been the medium.
I would have been
Yeah.
like the soup cans in Andy Warhol's.
Yeah, let's say
Yeah.
you would have been Mona Lisa, not the Mona Lisa, but just the person.
I
Mona
couldn't say
Lisa.
it. Like, I needed to pass the buck to Seth for that one. That would seem a little too conceited. Yeah, I mean, in the game without Rook F5, I mean, you can verify this with an engine. Rook F5 is White's only move. It's the only move, and it is the absolute winning move. But any other move, Black just has a decisive advantage.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, I wonder, I haven't gone through, but like, was by engine, because like engines are pretty materialistic, right? Generally speaking. and you were up 2 pawns, but everyone was saying how much they liked Costa's position earlier in the game. So did the engine like Costa? Like, I mean, I'm sure it liked it better than being down 2. It wasn't like
Right.
I'm sure he had tons of compensation, but like it wasn't like a -2 position at any point. But was it like was the engine think he was significantly better at it?
So the way that I interpret engine evaluations when there are material imbalances is to just sort of keep doing the math, right? So if I'm up 2 pawns and the engine gives anything less than a 2-pawn advantage to black, it means that there's some compensation that exists. It might not be clear precisely where that compensation lies or like what the path forward is, but you at that point you know that the engine thinks that there's some initiative in exchange for that material deficit. If I remember correctly, my advantage never got to +2 for black, but was probably around the like +1 level for most of that early middle game. But as the game went on, I was playing less and less precisely, and Casa's advantage was growing. So he, I mean, even 2 pawns up, I don't think in that position the computer would remain so materialistic if I was like incapable of moving any pieces at all.
And I've heard someone say like if you're giving material, or if you're up material, but the engine thinks your position is even, someone has explained, then your position is not good, because the engine is finding perfect defense, is like perfect calculation, saying you're even with the extra material. So that means you're in like real trouble.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, if the engine says 0-0 and you're up 2 pawns, like, most likely you're gonna have a really hard time defending that position, unless it's like saying 0-0 because there's a clear 3-fold repetition on the board.
Right? Yeah, right. There's like a perpetual or something.
Yeah. So Coco was asking too. When did you see this? Did you find this F5 move later, or did they?
So I didn't see it and then withhold it in the postmortem. I did not know that Rook F5 was playable until after we had wrapped up the tournament, and then I entered my game in just from my own files, and that's when the engine smacked me hard across the face in that position, because I just presumed that black was simply winning after allowing 96, and I could not have been more wrong. but for to be so spectacularly wrong, I feel like is almost like I probably feels as good as being right.
Yeah, I agree. It's like, if it's like that, and especially when it's being played at your level, I feel like at my level, people like to look at the engine and go like, oh, I had a win. I'm like, well, both players missed it, so the engine had a win, but did you really? It's like, but you could say like, okay, well, that was just 2 potsers missing a tactic they shouldn't have. But when 2 like master level players miss it, then it's like, that's really something.
Isn't that what like David was saying? He was like, when you look back at your games and realize you missed some like complex tactic that you would have been like +5, but you were never really +5 because it wasn't a tactic that you were ever going to see. So you really can't take that. You can't count that as that calculation because it's something you wouldn't find. So you don't say you would have been +5 just because you just wouldn't have seen it.
If my game against Casa confirmed anything, it was to really like proceed with caution when reviewing your own games with an engine. Like, really try to do it without one first.
Yep.
And then make sure that you have your ideas down, your contingency plans and everything, that have been unprocessed, through Stockfish.
Yeah.
And then just switch it on to confirm or overturn your suspicions. But don't just blindly start from move 1 and have the engine run and be like, oh, so I played this move that was plus 0.4 and the engine found one that was plus 0.7. I'm an idiot. I should have played the one that was plus 0.7. Yeah. Especially if you can't articulate why one move is even any better than the other. And
yeah, a lot of guys do this at these tournaments I've been playing. They bust out the laptop right as soon as their game is done, and they start just straight looking at it. They're like, oh man, I know this was good for me, and like, what does the engine say? And I'm like, well, if you know it's good for you, then but why didn't I win? But like also because it's not just that, but it's like you can find so much stuff in your own analysis after the game, and you're not giving yourself the chance to like do that brain, because like it's like during the game you are completely on your own, and then after the game you have what happened in the game as a guide. And then you also have the ability to actually like move the pieces, so your analysis then gets like that much better than it was when you played it. So it's like you can find things after the game that you couldn't find in the game almost every time without the engine.
Yeah.
And if you do it with the engine, then you'll never, someone you saw it, but you didn't like really think about it or try to understand it.
I'd be interested to hear Mitch's thoughts on this, but I would say it's probably a pretty safe threshold that to at least play 10 moves before really taking seriously any disparity in what the engine produces as far as rating one move as of higher quality than another.
I'm sorry, what do you mean by play 10 moves? You mean
we were kind of talking about that before we went live, about like how certain openings you guys were talking about how how valuation will just change dramatically. I say you're losing when you're playing a King's Gambit or something.
Right. If you're on move 5, the engine will give one move that could be plus 0.4, and then it would have its second ranked move would be plus 0.3. But the move that's plus 0.3 could be considered the theoretical main line.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
I'd
say even after 10 moves, there's really sometimes that you want to find a slightly worse best move because it's has more advantages to it than just the best move. I found this a lot while looking at the Miran for white, that there's a lot of 0-0 positions that black has to make the best move over and over again, versus different positions that are like plus 0.2 that black has more options, and it's consistently around 0-0 to plus 0.2. So I think a lot of the times like small engine discrepancies are really nothing to worry about too much, especially in opening preparation. But even when analyzing your games afterwards, like a lot of people be like, oh, I went from plus 0.8 to plus 0.3, I made a mistake, or maybe mistake is correct there, but I hate when people say, oh, I blundered there, because you're still a slight advantage, and plus 0.8 isn't a ton more than plus 0.3. And so engine analysis isn't always super helpful, especially analyzing your own games, but it's good to point out like really big mistakes and really big blunders or misses in your calculation.
Yeah, and who knows the depth you're using too when because like if you're doing it for the opening, like if you've ever done it, you'll notice like it'll be like after a certain move in a certain line, right? It'll say like plus 0.8, like you're saying, right? And then you'll pick, and then it'll tell you what the move is for that side, that for white, that's plus 0.8. And you put it on the board, and then the engine goes like, maybe plus 0.5. I think I overstated it. It's like,
that's a consequence of the horizon effect, right?
Exactly.
Because it will have seen like one move differently now in the given position. it's cool that we arrived here organically, because I think it's a nice segue into what I think engines are really more valuable for in terms of chess improvement, which is to play against, right? To not have it be like someone grading your test, right? Mm-hmm. But to actually give you a chance to dive deeply into a position and have it be like your learning partner, mm-hmm. right? And not like your
teacher,
assessor in a way.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So for me, what has become extremely helpful in understanding plans in certain positions is if I'm trying to learn something from the white side, I'll reach a position and then I'll switch sides. And I'll basically just play what I think would be a natural looking move in that position for the other side. And I will then see how the engine like dismantles, right, my attempts. Mm-hmm. And it's basically a really effective way to learn what the optimal plans are in those positions, like mm-hmm. given possible candidate moves by your opponent. And to just do that for like 15 or 20 minutes, like on one position, you could probably see 2 or 3 different moves far enough ahead to understand why it succeeds or why it fails. Yeah. That I think is way more substantive in terms of helping your chess understanding than just having it run while you punch your moves in, from start to finish.
And you'll do that basically like at any position of the game. Like I know a lot of people, I'll turn it on like for an end game position, but like lots of those kind of just outside of the opening or middle game positions are the part where I start to like freeze up and I have no idea what a strategy is. Do you go to like those positions too, just kind of like a middle game position and run those through there?
It's basically once you reach a position where there are, let's say, 2 or 3 equally attractive options, right? For you or for your opponent. At that point, you can basically just experiment, right? Like have that be your laboratory session. Mm-hmm. So you can just try the different moves, right? And importantly, see what plan you intuitively are drawn to in that position, and then if you're corrected by the engine, then at least now you see, oh, okay, so that's what I missed. And
that's interesting because like there's so many people that will always say like never play against the engine. They don't play human moves and that kind of stuff. But you're kind of more talking about just taking it positionally from a certain position, not trying to play a full game, right, where it's just kind of where out of the opening they're playing some maybe weird moves from a human sense, but you're just talking about taking a position and playing it from there. That's interesting to do. I've never tried that other than like just taking an end game drill or something along those lines.
I have done that once. Yeah. I did it once, and I don't know if it's the most useful for me. I think I have just so much other stuff to practice, but like, I remember back when I would still study opening. Now, like, based on advice of people here, they're like, just, have a good, reasonable opening repertoire, and then just, get better at chess, basically. But
stop hanging pieces. It doesn't matter what opening you play.
Right. Yeah. But like, I remember doing that drill one. I can't remember what opening I was trying to learn, but like, I was like, all right, I'm going to get to this position and I'm going to play it against the engine until like the engine overwhelms me. And then the only problem I was having is usually the engine would beat me because of some blunder. And I'm like, oh crap. And then like, I try to go back and be like, all right. Not that move. Let's try that, but then like, it kept beating me tactically, basically. Right. And no matter how I did it. So like, I mean, but I think it was a little bit, because like you could get a little bit deeper each time to like, and then you could go back and evaluate like, all right, how far into this game did I make it? where I'm still fine. And if I'm still fine, that means I was playing good moves, because obviously the engine only plays good moves. So then you can go like, okay, I can play this opening to, like this to like move 14 and it's good or whatever. So I think maybe that is useful.
And I mean, for me, it's as close as I feel I can really come to actually having a conversation with the engine, in it being able to explain why it prefers a certain move over others. Because once you see certain plans in action, and you can appreciate why a move was suggested over another one, right? You like, the worst thing to do is just to see that it likes one move over another and stop and be like, oh, this advantage is higher, so this must be the winning move, and now I can move on. Because if you can't explain why it's a better move, you're probably better off not playing it. Because you
that was driving me crazy when I was originally learning to play.
Right. So by actually implementing different plans and seeing how things unfold, the engine kind of reveals to you why it prefers certain things over others, and at the same time, you can kind of reverse engineer plans, right? Like if in all of these different lines you see that it wants to put a certain piece on a particular square, right, or to control something, then at a certain point it makes an impression.
Sorry, I didn't mean to hit that. I went to hit my mute button when I was going to cough and accidentally hit a Jesse drop. Right in the middle of your statement.
No, that was like a Freudian drop. So in terms of like my own preparation and what I did for the All-Stars and what I'm doing for Charlotte, I think that this approach where I will have certain positions in mind where I need a way of prioritizing, like what's my move going to be here. I have a few decent ones to choose from. By running those experiments, I can see which ones I'm most comfortable with, and I'll have no regrets about picking a line that maybe is considered slightly inferior, but in terms of the plan and action and like being able to use it practically, if it just makes more sense to me, I'll forego like a nominal edge according to the engine for one that I can actually like play out, completely understanding exactly why I'm making these moves, like what the purpose is, what my objective is.
Yeah, I think you're giving some really great advice on how to use the engine, and it is also kind of sounding a lot like reasons why some people like David would say not to use the engine is because the people who do not actively do what you're doing when they're looking at the engine lines are doing it incorrectly and hurting themselves in doing so. And yeah, totally. The cutoff for when you can use an engine to learn and improve is when you are willing to learn and improve using the engine rather than just using an engine. You have to ask it questions. You have to figure out, why is it suggesting this? Why is the move that I thought of not the engine move? Why is the like that sort of thing? You have to actively engage with it. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't do correctly. They just run the new review button and the guy with the goatee says brilliant move and they're like, haha, I'm gonna go post this on Twitter.
Yeah, I didn't know David Bruce when I started playing chess, and like I was just playing on lead chess, and after I was thinking like that I was doing the right thing, basically, right? Just the way I was, just like I would play a game and then I'd be like, no, I'm not playing too fast. I'm playing games that are slow enough. I'm thinking about my moves, and then after the game, it would be like do report, and then it'd be like review mistakes with engine. That's like a lead chess review mistakes, and it would go this one where the graph spikes, and it'd be like, here you messed up. Find a better move. And you'd be like, okay, well, sometimes you're like, oh yeah, I should have done that because it was like an obvious blunder, or you missed a winning tactic, and then you see it after the game. But other times you'd be like, what? And then it'd be like, nope, there's something better. No, there's something better. And you're like, what? And like, still somewhat of a beginner at the time, and just like, yeah. And then like I would go down this rabbit hole following, okay, you're like, okay, show me the move. And then you'd be like, why? And then like, what happens next? The next. And you're like, but, and then you would like, I remember I would like click through the whole game of the engine, like the engine's like now repeating against itself. And it's like doing all, I'm like, get to the point of this move already. That I just play out the whole game through the engine. And then until the engine is drawing itself by repetition at the end, and I'm like, Jesus. But yeah,
that's what I mean. Like, I think like just about everybody, it's so accessible that when I started, I would just hit, show me the review, and then it'd be like, this move was bad, you should have played this, and I'd look at it and be like, okay, that makes sense, and then move on to the next one. But right. I never came across it myself. And when I get to the same position the next game, just because I saw it before, I can't remember every single move. So it was pointless to tell me. You could tell me that it was a bad move, but I didn't learn anything from it.
I can show an example from stuff I was looking at recently.
Do you want to just share? I got screaming kids in the background. Do you want to just share your screen?
Well, I don't think I could because it wouldn't be on a approved platform.
Oh, gotcha.
But I could just I could feed you moves.
Yeah, let me just go back to
do you both have chess base?
So I actually don't have a PC, right? And so there's no real chess
Mac doesn't have, unless you're running like Parallels or Boot Camp or something.
So bizarre to me, but okay.
which is probably an investment I should make. I mean, chess base
21.
Yeah.
That's like in architecture, none of the software we use basically is on Macs. They've started making some of it, but basically I had a Mac in college, but I was basically running Boot Camp almost the entire time. So it's kind of pointless to have them Mac.
That's surprising. Would AutoCAD doesn't run, or
AutoCAD in my. When I was all right, so this was a decade ago. I guess I am that old now, or I can't say. When I was just in college, like it was just recently. It wasn't a long time ago at this point. They had just come out with it. But also, AutoCAD isn't even used as much in our world anymore. It's like onto newer software that they don't have in. Yeah.
So I'm looking at the black side of the English, right? The reverse Sicilian with C4.
Flip the board.
And E5.
Yeah, don't make me try to know what exactly what moves are in the English. I know opening.
It's the reverse Sicilian.
Wait, I went. Isn't it like C? Is it C4? C4? Oh, I got it right. Only because I started reviewing it was actually in Dan Heisman's. Was it the world's greatest amateur whatever book or whatever? That book is. I was just starting to review it today, and it was the English, and it was like C4 is the first move. I was like, all right, I now know what the English is. All right.
So I'm looking at E5, knight to C3, bishop to B4. If you want to get technical, this is the Kramnik-Shirov counterattack.
Yes, I know that only because it's shown on my screen.
Yeah. And I was looking at alternatives to the main move knight d5. So
wow.
Second most popular is G3.
It's weird that such a basic opening is named after such current players. You would think someone would have gotten it before Kramnik and Shirov.
Kramnik, Shirov. Yes, sir. World's most instructive amateur games. Thanks, Box Bishop.
On names of things.
Bishop takes C3. B takes C3. D6.
Sorry,
no, not B takes. D takes. This is a different line. Both moves are fine.
This is a reverse Rosalimo.
Yeah. D6.
That's
D6. Yeah.
bishop g2, knight f6, knight f3. And so if you notice, there's 0 pawn tension in this position, right? So move order choice is kind of a matter of taste, but there are nuances. And so I think one of Black's most popular moves is an early knight c6. But what I discovered is that if you withhold knight c6 and you castle instead, and then white will castle, h6, right? Just stop anything coming in on g5. Knight e1.
Knight e1.
Yeah. So the idea behind
I
knight
see
e1,
I see a lot of high rated players play moves like that I would never even.
Well,
consider.
it opens your
Yeah,
bishop, but like
Right.
it sort of makes it annoying for Black to develop, I guess. But
that's exactly right. It opens the diagonal so that now the c8 bishop is stuck guarding b7, and you're gonna really try to bring your knight to d5. Right, the idea is to go to c2, b4, d5, or possibly c2, e3, d5. But this knight, the best square forward is on d5.
So Black should just play knight c6 here, right?
So
because you're not going to trade it. You're not going to trade that bishop for the knight.
So instead of knight c6, actually, in this position, I discovered that a5 is more accurate. Well, maybe not. Maybe I shouldn't say more accurate. If I'm playing Black in this position, I'm going to play a5 instead of knight c6, and I'll explain why.
The knight a6.
Please do.
After knight c2. Now I'll just continue.
Sorry, after
a5, knight c2.
I'll continue to gain space on the queen side with a4. And if the knight moves again, I could probably even continue gaining space, or I can just
wait. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
They don't want to take that, I suppose. Yeah.
I mean, after knight b4. Yeah, I mean, I could maybe just leave it on a4 and go. I don't know, maybe rook a7 if I want to move my bishop off. But
yeah. These are the reactions that people like me and Seth have. You said that, and we're like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah. Rook a7.
No, rook a.
But I get it. It also gets out of the line.
Actually, okay, move. Like I'll go b6, and then be able to move my bishop. But
sorry to bring this up to Mitch, but Rook A7 reminds me of a move Mitch played in the finals of Ultimate Sensei.
I don't even know that one.
And like I was just for like 2 weeks, people would like come on the dojo and make fun of that. Like it's like they were like all the senseis, everybody was watching it, was on the show, and they're like, what is that move? You know, so you have these GMs, and I think like at one point David was showing it to like Greg Shahadi, and Greg Shahadi's talking about,
oh geez.
So
yeah, Jesse said that he was going to nickname me Rook A7 after, because I played Rook A7 and then I played Queen to A8 to get my queen and my fianchettoed bishop on the diagonal, and like it's an idea that comes up in some of the lines that I play against the London, but I was playing against the bird and it just didn't make any sense, and yeah, I was made fun of for all eternity. So, thanks. So
I certainly didn't mean to dig up any old wounds.
Playing if chess isn't painful enough when you do it on the internet, no one ever forgets your moves.
But
so that was not deliberate. But
did I mention that Mitch was in the finals of Ultimate Sensei?
That's just an ad, because if anybody was wondering, maybe there isn't time to still join season. Well, it might help if I type season 2. But season 2 of Ultimate Sensei will be starting soon. I think they're hoping to announce the contestants possibly tonight or maybe tomorrow. And they're still waiting on one final. Derek? I didn't. I thought about it because it's in my rating range, but
I feel like you get automatic if you won.
I thought about applying, and then I was like, I'm gonna have to edit all the Ultimate Sensei videos, so I'm not gonna sit there. First of all, edit all of my own like collapses on stream, and then I don't have the time. So I was like, I'll let somebody else apply that has more time, more free time.
I don't know, man. If you can play like you put that intro together.
Yeah, see, I have to put intros together. That took a long time for a 2-minute intro. You guys better like it.
So sorry, we got a little.
All right, so we played Rook A7.
All right.
So I was curious, having seen this, what Black would do if White stops the A pawn from advancing, and instead of Knight B4, just goes A4.
Oops.
Well.
Oh.
I'm sorry. Instead of Knight C2.
Yeah.
Instead of Knight C2, right? With the Knight on E1, after A5, what if White just goes A4?
That seems like to be a common.
And this is where it became clear that if White goes A4, now it is beneficial for Black that he is not committed the Knight to C6 because you go Knight BD7. And your Knight is going to be much better on C5 against this structure with pawns on C4, C3, B2, A4 than your Knight would be on C6.
Your Knight on C6 in general is just dominated by the pawn on C3.
Right. So by having waited on where to commit your Knight to and just immediately expanding on the queen side with A5, if White wants to stop you from continuing to push your A pawn, it now opens up this possibility to develop your Knight to D7 and C5 instead. Whereas if you had kept the pawn on A7 and gone Knight C6, if you have the idea later of trying to gain this queenside space, and A5 is met with A4, your Knight on C6 will be misplaced, or at least it won't be as well placed as it could have been to have made the most out of trying to create chances in that position. Oh,
hey!
All right, say hi again.
Now,
Hi.
hi,
All right, say goodnight.
hello.
Bye.
Bye.
hi.
All right, bedtime. Give me one more.
Bed.
All right.
It's bedtime.
Okay, they know it's bedtime. All right.
Nice.
Sorry.
No. So one of the reasons why I know I'm not good at chess is because unless somebody has told me about this idea, there's no way in hell I'm ever playing like this. Because I've just any openings, unless I know about them beforehand that involve playing Knight B D7 before I've figured out what to do with my light square bishop, are just I'm just making it. I'm just now my bishop's even farther from being developed.
Right. I'll say this though. There's nothing wrong if Black wants to play an early Knight C6.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think that it's inferior to this other plan of keeping the Knight back and pushing the A pawn instead. It's just a matter of choice, really, like of preference. I think if you run this position through an engine, it may not even distinguish between Knight C6 and A5 in terms of what the output is. But for me, having looked a little deeper to discover this move order nuance, where if you don't bring the Knight to C6 and White tries to stop you from going A4, then you can develop your Knight to D7 and C5, whereas you just don't have that same option available if you bring the Knight to C6 right away.
Mm-hmm.
There are other viable plans you could use. But to know that this possibility, it exists, and this is a position where you can take advantage of it, is really helpful, especially in these kinds of openings where there's literally no pawn tension. So it's like either side can play 5 or 6 moves with a piece.
The position's not going to open.
Right. And that are all by and large equally good. It's
makes sense.
Actually. Yeah.
Yeah, you just need to find what squares your pieces want to live on, basically.
Right.
But I guess I could come around on this idea now, though, because like now the bishop to d7. This is why I can do it, is because now when the knight gets to c5, it defends b7, right? And now I can move my bishop with freedom.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly one benefit of having the knight on c5. Although usually by now white may not have anything better than actually going e4.
E4,
right? Because white wants the knight cemented on d5 anyway. So having the pawn on e4,
right?
It's something that white would probably want to do eventually.
No, white e4. Yeah. But so they go
e4. Though, even if that was an accident, showing what happens after black were to go e4, right? Because
that's like in Sicilians, the other way. That's a common thing. Black, if I ever like in closed Sicilians, a lot of the time, not an open Sicilian, obviously, but in a closed Sicilian, a lot of times you play. I do anyway. You get like the clamp on d4, whatever. But you play e5 to stop white from playing e4, and then you also get the clamp on d4.
Right. But this would be another good illustration of a kind of position where you could see like, okay, so if I stop white's plan to go e4, right, like immediately, what is white's best way of like reacting to that, right? Like how would white exploit the new weaknesses I've created on the dark squares, right? Having pushed that pawn, is it now I can enter on d4 where I couldn't before, or maybe the pawn just a little overextended and you would do something with f3, right? It's not totally clear, but like this is the kind of position that I think would be rich in learning about the intricacies of this type of structure and understanding what the best plans are and how to take advantage if those plans are not extinguished, right, by your opponent.
Yeah. When you prepare openings, how much of it is based on what your opponents are, on your study of your opponents?
That's a good question. So the short answer is, and I guess just what I have sort of grown comfortable doing, as I've learned what more effective study habits are, is instead of going in one extreme direction, which is to play only offbeat, unorthodox, like unexplored lines, hoping that your opponent will simply be completely unfamiliar with it and that you're like the only one on the planet who has seen this position before. And so you'll know.
The upper shock strategy.
Right. I'll take your word for it. I think that it makes
he would agree if he was here.
I think it makes far more sense to see like what the really like topical main line is, right? Like the super duper main line. And then once you have seen what those moves are in action, you can reverse engineer and say, okay, so if someone avoids the main line, right, how can I now take advantage of that? Considering that they didn't play a move that has basically like the general consensus is this is the correct move to play in the position. So it's like you can ask yourself, why is this move incorrect, right? What can I do now that I would have been unable to do had the mainline theory continued, right? And I think that is a more informative way of preparing than looking at third or fourth move options as a way of trying to avoid the main line. At the end of the day, you may decide not to go the path of the super duper main line and to deviate somewhere else, but at least you've given yourself the that extra piece of information where you can now like weigh the costs and benefits of entering a well-trodden path or doing something that's slightly less popular, because it suits your taste, or because there may be some other factor involved. It could be for any reason, but I think it's a more efficient way of seeing like what is being played the most, by the top players, and then it leads you in the right direction in terms of the questions you should be asking, right? So with these alternate moves, right? Moves that avoid main lines.
Yeah, but dude, so like this is what I do, and you can tell me if this is bad or not. But like, for instance, I was playing Mitch this week.
I saw that you guys had the matchup this week.
And then all I do is, so the way the only people I prepare for, like anyone I play OTB is going to be, I'm going to find out right before the game. So it's only these like dojo classical games that I actually get the prep for. And I just opening tree the person. And then, and I just basically see what they play against what I play. And then I just kind of refresh and study up on that, or like prepare like one part, like where it's like most likely to deviate, and be just like solidify my own knowledge, like to make sure that I know what I'm doing there. That's so like if I'm playing Mitch, I think I'm getting a King's Indian. I have my whole King's Indian prepared out, and then and then if I'd known he'd been studying like sidelines of the Moran semi-Slav lately, I would have, but anyway, I didn't. So, and then nothing happened. We ended up playing a Botvinnik semi-Slav, and the game went nuts, and then I hung my queen. But like,
did you do a lot of prep? Did you do a lot of prep, Mitch, studying up on Seth's games?
No, I was sitting at the dinner table when his challenge came in. I was like, I'll probably play the semi-Slav this game instead of the Grunfeld.
This is what I figured as well, because I know Mitch is like, as Jesse calls him, as an opening GM. So I was like, oh man, I'm gonna get slapped in the face with something good, some opening he really knows. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna figure out what he plays. And I'm like, but the good news is he's not gonna be preparing for me at all. And so if I prepare for him, maybe I'll get I'm like, all right, I have my line. I know what King's Indian we're going for. I'm going to play the Averbach King. He's going to play C5. And then I'm going to, anyway.
All you had to do was go look at his chessable and scroll through all the courses that he has or that he studied. And it's like every different like opening. So there's nothing you can do.
Nothing to do about that.
Well,
yeah.
One thing when you're doing something like that, Seth, is to note recent games versus historical games, because historically my games are King's Indian, but I haven't played a King's Indian in close to a year now.
Your opening tree was surprisingly not like I thought it would be like I thought it would be way bigger. I thought there'd be way more games in it, but so
yeah, you have to like combine my Lee Chess and my chess.com because I play on both. And then so and then you also want to look at timing, because in both cases King's Indian is my most played, but is also if you limit the tree to like the last 8 months or something like that, then you'll see how I haven't played King's Indian forever.
Usually I look at the tree, and then if there's like two like moves that like they've played a lot, then I go, okay, which one is coming, and then I just see I see which one they played more recently, and I pick, I prepare for that one more.
Yeah, and for both of you, you said you haven't played the king. Like, how often do you guys like try to? Are you still at the point where you try to mix up your openings or try something different? Like you say, you haven't played the Kings in over a year. Did you just get bored with it, or did you just want to experiment with other things?
Because
Or
the King's Indian is a drug. It's not an opening. I've been clean for about a year. The King's Indian is the most fun and the least fun you can have in chess. If you have a good King's Indian game, you think that you're an absolute genius and like you just have like a feeling of a high for a long time. But then if you lose a bad King's Indian game, you want to give it up. Maybe you consider quitting chess. Like it's like the King's Indian is not good for mental health. And I
It's
I gave
similar
it-
with and with white, it's like I almost like every King's Indian game, like I either win or I lost, but like I can almost never tell you why. Like yeah, like it's just like it's always like just super complicated.
yeah, it's a crazy opening for sure.
How about-
but yeah, I've been experimenting. Oh, sorry, you were gonna ask Evan, I think.
oh no, you're good. I was curious if Evan if you still mix yours up, or I mean, I know you're at or are you at your level? Are you kind of set or know enough?
If I'm doing the responsible thing, I really shouldn't be mixing things up as far as my openings go, because any sort of casual blitz game or rapid game that I'm playing should probably be with the intention of like just testing, how well prepared I am in a particular line, right? There are exceptions. There are certain openings that I have just decided if I face this move in blitz, I'm not going to play what I would play in like a classical game. I'll play a line that's more fun. And that's really just for like my own kind of sanity, right? And to like break up the monotony. But other than that, I won't really mix things up if I'm like playing those games for the right reasons. If I'm just like on tilt, right, or like playing like hateful, spiteful chess,
Yeah,
then I'll mix it
that's
up.
all I
I'll
play.
right, but I'll mix it up in like malicious way. Like I'll play 1A3 or 1A6, right, just to be able to like say, oh, I beat you with A3. Like you're a disgrace to chess, which is so, which is such a stupid thing to do. But I mean, I'm guilty of doing it, and I think it's safe to say everyone here has done something like that at least once, just because we're human beings, right? And we can't stay composed all the time, even though we'd love to.
Yeah, it's online
free
blitz.
for me,
You can
but now
go
people
crazy.
take it seriously.
Yeah.
I do it the other way. When they play bad openings, I'm like, you deserve the beating of a lifetime for playing that England gambit against me or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Then I get too focused and think I deserve to beat them because they played some ridiculous opening, and then they end up beating me. I'm like,
yeah,
and I feel even worse about myself.
Right.
But also, if you haven't already, I would suggest opening treeing yourself.
I've done that. Yes.
Right. Like,
yeah.
Because as far as preparation goes, knowing what your prospective opponents will see when they prepare for you is probably just as important as having done the work for them, right? Because if there's a line that you play in a particular opening that's so prevalent, but you're planning on playing something different, you may not want to reveal that, right? Try to like limit your tells in a way. Be like, oh, if this is what they're going to find on opening tree, maybe I'll just lay low for a little while.
Yeah, or like the other day, like is like if there's like some tricky move I don't know and like a Queen's Gambit declined exchange, but like then my opponent can like go searching for that because they'll see like a million of those games played on my opening tree, or something like that.
When did you guys at least start really, or when do you think you should start focusing so much on the opening? Because if I haven't made it clear enough already, I know like close to no opening theory. You guys just say a bunch of names, and I have heard them before. I have no idea what any of them are.
So I think there's a clear distinction between going so far into the opening and going too far into the opening. I think that really one thing that you can see from the last year or so of my chess is that I haven't really improved. And it's because I've been switching my openings and learning new openings and all that instead of sticking to one thing that I really knew and playing that well. And I think that that's kind of held me back a bit. Like I said, I used to play King's Indian all the time. And then I went so far as to convert all 5 of Cotronius's books into chessable courses to learn the King's Indian. And then now I don't even play it. So how much of that was wasted time? Way too much. So that's where opening study really hurts people. And I think that's where most of when masters say like, don't study the opening, what they're coming from is don't study openings that you're not going to play and don't study openings just to learn the opening. And after like once you set that aside from actual study of the opening, so what I've learned in the Marshall and everything from Jan Gustafsson's course is more than just the opening. I've learned how to play opposite colored bishop endgames and try to press for an advantage even when there isn't one. I've learned how to bail out of an attack into a threefold repetition by studying the opening, but also asking questions about it and playing it and sticking to that opening. And then, now if I were to go play the Najdorf, which I was considering, and I'm talking myself out of it anyway, I would have wasted the last year and a half of learning the Marshall. So that's the downside of opening study. But at least if I were to switch, I still gained those other things from it.
Right. Yeah. To play like devil's advocate or like, couldn't you argue, Mitch, that like while playing different openings is, and I think this is why I have trouble ever switching my openings and I never do, is because like I feel like I still have so much, like I can still get so much better at my openings. I'm like there's like an infinite, like each of them still feels like there's like an infinite number of things to learn, and I've been playing them like hundreds of games by now or whatever, each or whatever, the main ones anyway. And but like, isn't there something to say for like long-term gains by trying playing different openings? Like short-term, you're not getting the rating gains you want, but maybe long-term it will be beneficial.
Yeah, if you're doing it for the correct reasons, and if that reason is to understand a pawn structure that you're not familiar with,
right,
and to gain ideas from that, then yeah, totally agree with you. If the way that people study openings, which unfortunately is most people when they study the opening, is learn this move for this move and this move for that move, etc., without asking critical questions about what do I do when in this certain pawn structure on as an idea, rather than against knight g5 I'm playing this move, but rather black's typical ideas in this structure are to do this, this, and this, and then learning move by move after that. And I think that's like the big difference between why masters will tell you don't study the opening and what you can learn from an opening. And it's taking that extra step that I think a lot of people don't do, but that if you do it, it will be very beneficial. Yeah. It's the same with what we were talking about with the engine earlier. When you're looking through an opening course or an opening book, ask yourself questions. Ask, why is this the move, etc. Not just learning it, but actively inquiring about it and learning past the moves itself, but into the ideas.
And I'll answer. The one question in chat is, what is the meaning of Dojo Scrubs? So I'll just briefly explain. On Sunday nights, we let the Scrubs, or typically me and Seth, and then Drew is our other hosts. We are
the scrub. Let the scrubs.
Yeah, we are the Scrubs. Basically, Scrubs are like, I don't know, it's not a hard rating. It's like below 1700. We're not quite beginners, but not quite having any idea what we're doing. But today we are actually lucky enough to have Mitch and Evan, who are the opposite of Scrubs. They're the good chess players, so we're getting a lot of knowledge from them. So that's the meaning of the Scrubs. And I cut you off, Evan. Sorry, you were about to say something.
Oh no, that's okay. It's good. I'll take being an honorary Scrub any day.
We wouldn't do that to you. That's an insult to you.
All right, I'll stick with All-Star for now.
Yeah, you're the All-Star.
You're the All-Star.
I would subscribe to Seth's approach to an extent. I think that when you're at a certain level, it is absolutely critical to your personal development and improvement as a chess player to get a taste of everything that's out there. Play e4 and d4 and c4 and knight f3. Play e5 and c5, right? Play it to see how you feel against it. Don't feel compelled to learn it, to master it, right? But if you see a game played by super GMs and you're like, wow, that opening looks incredible, maybe I'll try it out. Then that's fine, right? Try it out. This is an age where we are blessed with a vast population of fellow chess players, right? To like test these things out against. If you are going to learn something with like long-term implications, right? Then that's really what you should do, right? You'll hear, that a like jack of all trades, not as good as master of one, right? So if there's one line that you basically can like rely on, that if you're going the route of being like a player who regularly competes in tournaments, right? And you're taking it seriously, you want to win, you should play what you know best. At that point, you may want to reconsider I'll sit down and roll the dice and play, whatever comes to mind, because for variety's sake, maybe that's good. But if you really are looking out for your own best interest as a chess player, you should be playing what you know best and not making concessions, to break up the monotony or because your opponent, has a good record against a certain opening. If anything, that should encourage you even more to play it, right? Like to really test your mettle. Be like, well, this is exactly who I want to be playing this against, because they'll be able to show me, what I'm doing right and where I can do better.
Yeah, I should clarify. I don't practice at all what I just said. I'm like the opposite. I play the same thing over and over, and I haven't changed openings in a long time since I started going to I've always played like Sicilian, but then like at one point I switched from whatever I was doing, like Scheveningen or whatever, to like knight c6 and this like Sveshnikov complex in the Sicilian. But anyway, I never change openings because I'm like, even though I've always been like, I should, and it's like a joke with like me and Drew, like I say how much I hate the Tarrasch defense, but yet I still but actually now I feel like committed to it. I'm like, but I'm kind of starting to get the idea. I'm sort of starting to get better at it. So I kind of want to stick with it. And it's like, and I don't, and so it's hard for me to like want to try something new. And again, because I'm like, but then there's a chance I might just throw this game away because of something I don't know in the opening.
So the idea of trying something new, I think, is a little misunderstood or like conflated for having to make like a drastic opening change. Like you need to go from one e5 against e4 to one c6 or c5, when openings themselves are complex enough, right? That if maybe you are looking for an alternative to one variation, you can simply play another variation within that same opening. And it's not like you need to start over.
That's
Right.
exactly what I was thinking I would do if I ever like actually commit and actually do it and actually try to play something else, is like, at least like, especially where like the Sicilian, I was like, I don't think I ever need to play anything besides the Sicilian against. I feel like I could go my whole chess career and play c5, e4, c5 every single game is black, because even in the Sicilian there's like like the structures I go to are sort of like are like not the typical ones, because if you're familiar, the Sveshnikov is much more kingside oriented and oftentimes leads to black hitting a kingside majority, whereas most Sicilians are sort of the opposite, right? Black tries to play on the queen side, right, on the open C or semi-open C file. And so it's like, and the pawn structures are very weird and different. And then like all the closed Sicilians, anyway. So I was like, I could just switch it up and like try like the Najdorf or the Kahn or something like that. And I would still get completely different types of positions from the Sicilian if I wanted to. Like,
yeah, no, and what you're describing, I think is exactly what more serious competitive players should be doing when they approach opening prep, which is to reach middle game positions where they understand the plans and ideas and like how to proceed and how to convert, right? Any sort of debate over whether an opening is good or not ultimately is who has the better chances once the opening is over, right? It's almost like in the negative. It's like,
yeah,
once we're out of the opening and start to play chess, like who stands better?
Yeah.
And like what you described with the different plans, in the Sveshnikov, right? Like getting F5 in and using the open C file and those kinds of ideas kind of transcend what most people maybe consider like conventional opening study, right? Just going through those moves and getting, once the kings are castled and your pieces are developed and, kind of stopping there. It's like, no, you need to keep going. If anything, you should be going as far into endgame structures, right? Like studying endgame, like the structures reached via certain openings and how they translate to endgame positions, maybe some of the most meaningful learning someone can do to understand an opening better.
The problem for me and Derek is that by the time our games get to, it doesn't matter the structure, like one size up a piece or something with them.
Yeah, that's the thing, is I was like, I try to switch up my openings, and I'll try to play different things very, very minimally, but I'll just try to, the David Proust approach where he says, play an opening at lower levels, play it for like a month or two and kind of get a sense, and then try something new just to see if you like it. But I generally only know like a couple moves deep, so either one of us will blunder or something like that. So I could play the same opening 2 games in a row and I'll come out winning on one, come out losing on the other. So that's why I haven't spent that much time, because also so many of these openings, they talk when you're even saying, knowing what the goals are about like certain openings, you want to maintain the light squared bishop is weak, or you want to push on the king side, and I know none of that. So I just play an opening, get to a position, I'm like, let's just free for all and just do whatever. Let's play chess now. That kind of theory ends very soon for me.
The easy thing to do with the bishops to figure out which one is just look at the pawn, just see what colors the pawns are on, and then that's it. Like that's like, it's like a stupid, like, I'm sure for Mitch and especially Evan, it goes much deeper than that. But that's like the scrub hack to like, how do you value your bishops? Just look at what color your pawns are on.
No, that's what Capablanca did.
Yeah,
do a lot worse than to use him as the example. I was going to say this: I will pose a challenge to dojoers in the Discord or the viewers in chat, where as of today, if you're on the fence about your opening choice and you'd like to switch, stick with the one you brought to the dance. And if you're worried, like, oh, well, I was going to spend this time studying my new opening, study endgames instead. Right? Like, if it's like, oh, so I was going to learn
Endgames, you say? Did you know that there's a new course out by International Master Kostya Kavitsky?
That is a phenomenal
#ad.
So yeah, obviously Kostya's
Nominal course, but not actually what Evan was talking about, because it's endgame studies versus studying the endgame.
Shh,
Right.
Don't worry about it. Just buy the course. Everyone should just buy the course. Then go on, Evan.
Yeah, enough with the subliminal messaging. Like, just fork it over, buy the course. But I think there's a very strong likelihood that the time spent, the investment made in focusing your end game learning on the structures that arise out of these openings, right? You can kind of consider your like building blocks, right? Like the foundation of your chess. It can go such a long way. And I think you'll also appreciate that where you thought you were like bored in a certain line, this should hopefully open your eyes a little more to see like the kinds of winning chances you can create in these openings that you may simply not have realized existed, because you would cut yourself short instead of really trying to see how far through you can get.
I think you read my tweet about the Najdorf, and you're like, Mitch, just focus, stay focused.
You know what? Maybe it was. Maybe I'm speaking directly to Mitch and not to anybody else. I'm just trying to walk him off the ledge a little bit. No, but I mean, I get it, right? Like, we identify with openings the same way we identify with like, any sort of tribe, I think, right? Like, and there is an emotional attachment involved, right? Like, we'll all remember our first opening the same way that we'll all remember like, our first crush.
Oh man, that was like the saddest nerd thing I've ever heard, but probably also true.
Oh, I mean, look, I'll be the first person to say how much I embrace my own nerdiness.
Yeah, well,
yeah,
I'm trying to sell.
Totally true.
I'm a teacher. We try to have the chess club. I try to get kids to come by, and I think that will just make sure that nobody ever shows up at my chess club again if I tell them. But
it'll make sure that
some of you kids will live the rest of your life remembering your first kiss or your first crush or something. But come here and you'll remember your first chess opening. That's what you want to take. No.
Yeah, and Nine Arts Dragon in chat was asking, because it was funny. I was thinking the same thing when you were talking about study the end games that arise from openings, because they asked, how do you study end games from openings? Wouldn't the middle game affect it? Because the entire time you were talking, I was like, okay, I've played these openings before, and I've looked at my pawn structure. I'm like, I have like chess structures, and I'm like, I'm gonna look at what they say. And the structure that they say arises from whatever opening I played is nothing like what I'm looking at, because we just go so off so fast. So I mean, from that kind of a standpoint, basically, are you relying on the structures to somewhat stay consistent as how they technically should stick from an opening? So,
like, at the most fundamental sort of like ECO level, right? If you're going to go through the actual like encyclopedia of chess openings and see how they are classified, and which ones are lumped together, there's actually like some reasons behind that. It's not like alphabetical. It has to do really with the closed or open nature of the position whether it's symmetrical or not, and things like that. So when I talked about the different like end games that arise, usually there will be some type of like pawn tension, right? Whether it's an open center or a locked center, if certain files are open, if there's an isolated pawn or not, some things that will just be sort of consistent throughout. And so I don't mean that you need to study an endgame that has like flowed and naturally from an opening where like there won't be any sort of change in what the structure looks like, but at least endgames where the likelihood that that kind of position would arise is high. And if you're having trouble doing that, just study rook endgames, right? Like a rook endgame with pawns on the where it's symmetrical or where there's some imbalance, right? Where it's like a 3 and 2 and 4 and 3, or if it's 3 on 3 and 3 on 3. But at least endgames that you are very likely to encounter in your own games, right? And rook endgames are the ones who are most likely to encounter. Like that will be good for your chess. That will probably be better for your chess than trying to learn a brand new opening from scratch. When, as Mitch described, like when you have already made such a weighty investment to learn what you have to this point, like why waste it?
Yeah, and Derek, I just put 2 FENs in the Zoom chat to kind of go over an example of kind of what Evan is saying.
Yeah, that'd be great. Because I think of a lot of like structural features that I know come up in the middle games from my openings. Like I know that one side has this weakness and the other side has this weakness, and each side makes plans accordingly, right? But usually by the time I get to an end game, I don't, or especially if I'm like reviewing my end games, I sort of just like reassess them then, and I sort of figure them out as I go. So that's sort of where I am.
Are convinced that their games are so tactically explosive that they'll never reach an end game anyway, right? To them, I will propose the idea that looking at end games is only going to improve your ability to calculate, right? There's far less pieces. There are more forcing continuations that you can visualize through, like long sequences of moves that you'll challenge yourself to, like, how deeply can I look ahead in this position? And that is going to be useful no matter what, right?
Yeah, I think endgames are actually the best for calculation because they also require like the most precision, except for like the most like cut and dry forcing like tactical variations that maybe happens like once every 2 or 3 games in middle games, right? But otherwise in end games, it's always like you have to calculate 6 or 7 moves that are forced, and you're either like in time by a tempo or you're not in time by a tempo, and you have to like decide whether you go for that plan or not. And it's like, and it'll win you or lose you. And it's like, if you're wrong, you lose the game.
Right.
So yeah. Whereas like if you're a little bit off on something, you miss something in a middle game, it's like, okay, well, there's a lot going on. You can like recover somewhere else or whatever.
Really, really quick, like the example I used before in that English, in that reverse Sicilian, like the luxury of choosing between A5 or knight C6, right? And understanding the differences in plans. When it comes to an end game, it's like there will be a correct way and an incorrect way. And as said, that you were just describing, it could be the difference between a win and a loss, right? That's where table based could actually be really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so here's a typical endgame that comes out of the bishop e3 marshal, and this is like dead drawn, but knowing how to draw this is important and something that I had to do quite a bit because
Whose
we're
move
picking
is
up
it?
it's white to move. So a lot of times what will happen in the marshal is you will come to a drawn endgame down a pawn, and knowing how to draw those endgames is extremely important. So that's exactly resonated with what Evan was saying, was typical endgames, something like this. There's also some Scotch positions where you also get to a rook endgame somewhat similar to this, but the pawns might be a little different. But just like seeing as you go through openings, going through and studying and seeing the positions that could arise and what typical endgames you might get is really good to direct your endgame study. So it's rather than just broad general endgame study, knowing, okay, I need to know rook endgames where I'm down a pawn. How do I hold this, or how do I even potentially push for an advantage if my opponent messes up? And then the other position I gave was another down a pawn endgame, which I personally know to trade down to an opposite colored bishop endgame and then hold the draw.
Sorry, before we move off of this one,
I almost feel like black is better in this position, even down a pawn.
Yeah, I already saw in chat that somebody had suggested maybe that.
Oh, did they? I'm like, the pass pawn is
if they
dead,
take,
and then
and then it's just kind of repeated.
Surely a draw. But
What was it? Did this come out of one of your games, or was this just a study that you've seen, Mitch?
This is the end of an opening line that I know. I don't think I've had this exact game, but I know the theory up to this move on this line. And then I know that it's a drawn end game from here.
Pretty deep. Yeah.
I'll see, another bedtime coming up. And your kid goes to bed way later than my kids.
You want to say hi?
Hi.
Hey.
If you're having trouble falling asleep tonight, we'll look at rook end games.
There you go. Don't say that. Chess Latte loves it. He was talking about how he loves end games.
I take it back. I take it back. Yeah. Okay, buddy. Love you. Bye. 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 Love you.
Happy almost birthday. You said he has a birthday coming up, right?
Yes, his birthday is Wednesday.
Very cool. Turning 3.
The big 3.
The big 3.
Wow.
Let me pull up the second one. All right, so this is the second one, right?
Yeah, so this is a second one. So we're going to likely lose the a6 pawn, and we need to typically in here we'll trade off a knight and a bishop for and get to an opposite colored bishop endgame and hold the draw.
This position's giving me a sense of deja vu for some reason.
Have you played the Marshal recently?
Wait, didn't you just say
no, I never. No, something about like an a6 pawn and bishop and something.
This is actually not that different a structure than the one that arose in my game against Josiah, right? The exchange Slav.
Oh, really?
Cool.
Yeah. Where just from studying those kinds of positions,
you were like completely winning that game.
Yeah, I don't think I made it as easy on myself as I could have.
It was good. I did get crazy tactical at the end.
Yeah, but I mean, Josiah, as I fully expected him to, was just finding these really savage, like tactical resources out of nowhere that, like, if I was a little careless, would get mated. and needed
Yeah,
to.
the kind of things
really
you
have my guard up.
18-year-old IMs probably tend to do that.
Yeah, right. So can't relax too much. But the idea that you have these symmetrical A and B pawns, but because blacks are so much more extended, they're weaker. And like by definition, they'll be harder to defend. And so it's far more likely that like white will win a pawn than black will in this position.
Yeah, black has nothing to attack, right? Basically.
Yeah, I mean, king activity is going to play a part for sure, but just the like sort of natural activity of the pieces where they stand, will matter. And so because black has these potential targets on a6 and b4, definitely a6 is that one is directly under attack, and white doesn't. That's a factor that would say, all right, if one of these sides can really try to play to create a decisive advantage, then maybe it's white.
Yeah, this would be a good position for my our show idea, endgame scrub say.
Yeah, you're just pitching that right before the show, doing endgame scrub.
I think selfishly, I think it would be great because I think like endgames is like the perfect thing, like to like try to like practice with other people, especially like other people around your level. And I mean, like you get plenty of practice of the other parts of chess just by playing enough games and by playing games, and then you do puzzles, you read, but I don't know, just something about practicing end games and just needing end game practice and just not having much or doing much, I think would be good. But yeah, and I just like the drill they do, just play out some end game and
just right and play it out and switch colors.
Right, switch colors and then talk, analyze at the end. And I've done it, we've done some stuff like that on here, but I just think that would be good.
Maybe even bishop b5 before bishop b6, or is bishop b6
yeah. As I played b3, it kind of realized that they could maybe just push and then they just kind of keep marching on. Yeah, because and Nine Arts was asking too. And then Mitch was responding to him because that was tricky. I was trying to find what even the first move was.
Well, I mean, even this is not. I guess bishop d7.
Yeah, that's true. Then if you trade,
yeah, I don't think he would trade, but at least then maybe you just go bishop c4, and then bishop b6 next. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, that one's tricky.
Yeah, so in the initial position, I've learned knight d5 is the way to go. And you kind of try to so after knight c5, sorry for white, then knight d5, and then bishop a7 because white doesn't want to give up the bishop, and then bishop f6. So like trying to make a little play over there on the b2 pawn.
We have something.
If you can take on a6, take on b2, that looks pretty equal.
Yeah, and then you're going to also eventually lose that b pawn, but the idea is to trade off to the opposite colored bishop endgame. So after say knight, so we're on bishop takes b2, bishop to c4, attacking our knight because it's defending the pawn. Bishop to e6, and then after bishop takes the knight, then bishop takes.
That makes sense. If you're gonna take my pawn at least at do it at the cost of a bishop.
Yeah, so up that, and then what was I just on? Knight takes
Bishop
b4.
c4.
Yep, bishop c4.
And then a4 and bishop c3.
Yep, a4, bishop c3. Knight c6. King f8. I'm just going through the game. Bishop to d4, and then white goes bishop d4, and then the key here is bishop to d5.
No.
To get the opposite colored bishop endgame.
Right.
But
Yeah, once black has succeeded
and it's
in
forced.
in sticking white with the dark squared bishop and queening on the light square, at that point, I think black can be pretty confident that this is holdable.
But can't white avoid this?
Yeah.
Can't white do something to avoid this?
White should be trying to keep their light squared bishop.
Oh, that's already gone.
Right. Yeah. Once white's traded off the light squared bishop, knowing that they're going to be left with an A pawn, it's going to be very, very hard.
So in that position there, because I would probably do that in 2 seconds too if I had white. I would trade and win a pawn. I'm like, yeah, bishops are good, but I've got a passed pawn. I'm making a passed pawn and going up a pawn, and so. But you think should white not take the knight there?
Well, so in this position, white could try something like f5, right? Just to mess up black's pawn structure. And then king f2, right? Just to create some sort of imbalance. If you are really trying desperately to win the game, right? In some positions, you maybe just have to concede. I can't win this. I shouldn't do anything dramatic because I could end up losing. But I think a move like f5 is actually pretty risk-free, right? Because the pawn that black is up is double isolated.
Yeah.
And there's a chance you can win it back anyway.
Right.
But yeah.
You're banking on it.
Yeah, I mean, would an engine suggest f5 as like a real move for white? Probably not, because just based on the materialism alone. But I mean, if you're playing a blitz game, f5 is probably the move I would instinctively play.
Yeah, dude, actually it's its third move is f5.
Oh.
I'm actually surprised.
No,
it says f5.
I mean, it makes f5 is an idea. F5 is the kind of move that you do see in GMN games where I go, I'm like, what? You're just losing a pawn. They're like, yeah, and then they go, there's no way you can take that. And I'd be like, why? It's an extra. Who cares if it's a bad pawn? It's an extra pawn. And like a GM will go, no.
Yeah.
That structure is so bad. It's much worse than having an extra pawn. And you're like, really? Well, yeah, the more you know. But yeah.
Yeah,
Magnus is like, made his living on endgames like this where he could be down a pawn or two, but his activity is so fierce that it won't even matter. Like he'll recoup the material eventually, because he's just will put his opponent in a bind. Like it's he really is kind of unmatched in that way among the 2700 level GMs.
Yeah. Magnus also, every game I've ever seen, I think except for one example, I think I saw Geary do it too, where someone has sacked a queen for 3 pieces is always a Magnus game.
Not a lot of chances to really do that.
No, it's hard to pull off, but if someone did it, it was probably Magnus.
And I've blundered a queen for lots of different iterations of material before and just tried to play it off like a sack. But
Yeah.
But I mean, these 2 examples alone that Mitch contributed, you could take 20 minutes out to look at each one, and what you can walk away with from having looked at this, I think will be able to you'll be able to put that into practice in your games more than you would, having just started trying to learn a new opening from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. Well, I think one of these like rapid tournaments, David turned on when he came back from his hiatus or something. He turned on one of my games. He's like, "Oh, Seth is still playing the Tarash defense. I see." And he's like, "Oh, still playing this." You're like, well, like, I think he may have even commented like, "Is he ever gonna get like bored of playing this thing?" And the answer is like no. Like, yeah, everyone's like, oh, get some variety. People, I guess that's some things, some of the arguments that people have for it. Like, oh, I just get bored of playing the same thing. I'm like, my game, like, chess is so complicated. I'm so far from ever playing anything close to a repeat of the same game. It's like it doesn't matter. That, like I'm just like,
that's where I would actually
with my openings.
I would advocate for some more chess 960 played in the dojo, right? Like, let's just eliminate the whole like my openings are deeper than your openings contest, and be like, hey, let's just play, let's play chess from randomly determined starting positions and like see who wins.
So do you think chess 960 is like
plays a lot
good?
of chess 960.
Do you think that's like good for just about anybody to play? It's something I've never played 960.
Oh yeah, I think chess 960 is awesome to play. When I went to UTD, right, and was sort of in the presence of these like IMs and GMs, we would play. We at the time we called it Fisher Random. I think it's still called Fisher Random, but
yeah,
chess
sometimes
960, that's how it's more popularly known. And like I
copyrighted that way. That's
I would be able to like stay competitive, right? Like I would be able to like hold my own when opening theory is like removed from the equation. Like it really is just kind of a test of like understanding like conceptually, right? Like how pieces coordinate, like what good plans are in terms of the weaknesses that exist in the starting position, right? It's not I mean, there is some like reasoning as to why the whole idea of going to e4, knight f3, bishop c4 like is this like most basic classical of openings, because the f7 square is the weakest square in the position from the starting position. It's only guarded by the king.
Right.
So because of that, it makes sense to target it as soon as possible. So my sort of like quick and dirty guide to figuring out your chess 960 openings is to find whatever version of f7 in the normal starting position exists in your
sometimes there's more than one.
Right? What is the square that is least well defended, and look at how your pieces are arranged, and like, well, so is it feasible to actually coordinate them in a way to attack that square?
That's kind of why I don't like chess, or that's kind of why I'm less drawn to chess. It's like I kind of like having the comfort of like knowing the starting features of the position, like I don't actually have to figure out like in chess, like chess 960 will have weird things where you'll just like you'll move upon it, it just like hangs a rook on move one. You're like, what the hell?
No, it's funny, right? Because there are probably far more games that end in 5 or 6 moves.
Yeah.
Right. Like where really somebody made a fatal mistake in the opening. In chess 960 compared to just standard chess. the same starting position, right? If you were to aggregate chess 960 games and standard games and look at the positions reached after move 25 in those games, I don't even know if they would be distinguishable, really.
Yeah. And that's why I feel like the opening is so complicated if you're just trying to do it from like a blank canvas standpoint. Like all the pieces are on the board, it's like, there's a million things, right? You can get like the game can end in 4 moves or less, and it can also and there's all these ideas that you have to want to do to set up for the middle game, and it's like the game can go any number of ways. It's like, but some of that intense cognitive load is taken down a bit by the fact that it's the same position every time. So so it's the one everybody is most familiar with.
Right. Yeah. Don't discount the importance of creativity.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think that would be the best part about chess 960 is it makes you test that creativity side and thinking about positions.
Right. That's definitely one of those qualitative characteristics, right? That really strong chess players exhibit. Like they are really creative. They're really resourceful, and playing Fisher Random or studying composed problems where you have to find really creative solutions is an awesome way of strengthening that muscle.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to try it then. I've never done it. I'm gonna test it out now.
I don't know, but I would suspect that the senseis would be somewhat receptive to instilling those benefits that arise from de-emphasizing opening theory, just brute memorization, right?
Wasn't David talking recently about how he wants to play more chess 960 or something, or how he thinks? I feel like
he thinks it should be part of the tie breaks for the world championship and stuff like that.
But that the starting position would be known, or that it wouldn't be known until
I didn't read the whole article. He wrote a really, really long article. I just know that was part of it. But he's always been a huge fan of Fisher Random. I remember when I first joined the dojo 2 years ago, when people would always ask if he was going to go for the GM title, he said that he really wasn't interested in it, but that if there was a GM title for chess 960 or Fisher Random, that he would prefer to go for that.
Yeah. Basically, he said he didn't want to have to do the opening study, he didn't want to.
Man.
And he didn't like the theory. He didn't like how theoretical. I guess basically all the complaints that Fisher had about chess, right? The reason he made the game.
Yeah.
but just his complaints about chess, not his complaints about anything.
No, just to be clear, David does not share Fisher's complaints.
David has the exact opposite opinions of Fisher and everything else.
Yeah, exactly.
Just in Fisher Random, do they share opinions?
That is refreshing to know.
All right. Well, I know Mitch is going to have to get off and probably get on baby duty or something, and go on for the 2 hours. So I think that's a good place to end it by saying that David is very different than Bobby Fischer and his beliefs about non-chess things. That's a perfect way to end it. But thanks, guys. Appreciate you guys coming on. Thanks
for having us.
Normally it's just us idiots over here playing variants and hanging pieces. So this was probably the most informative Scrubs episode yet. I appreciate both of you guys coming on and taking the time. Oops, I didn't mean to be showing that on stream. Sorry, I was trying to figure out who to raid.
If anyone's going to be in Philly over Thanksgiving, I hope to see you there. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, and Mitch, where are you? Have you lined up? Have you confirmed a tournament coming up, or where's your next tournament? Where can people look for you?
Probably in January. Would be my
first.
First.
The Catskills.
What was that?
I said you'll be playing the Catskills.
Yeah.
So you think you're aligned? Is that the World Open? Is that the one in January or?
January would be the St. Louis Chess Club Championships.
Oh, okay.
If I don't get to play in that, then my next one would be March. I don't know. I'm looking at a January tournament, a March tournament, and then World Open is in July.
Oh, that's not till July.
So World Open's the big one that I'm going to be focused on as like my goal is to do well in the World Open, and the other tournaments would be practice for that. So,
all right. Well, I think Evan might be getting called too. So we'll end that now. We'll do it hard in there. And thanks a lot, guys. And we'll see you guys later.
Thanks again.
Bye.